Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone, episode number 130 for the 15th of April, 2011. Richard Saunders here with you from Sydney, Australia. Now, let's have a look at my script here for today's show. It says we have a story on HARP. HARP. Over-the-horizon radar systems and high-altitude atmospheric research projects. Ooh, that sounds like interesting stuff. You know, some people think that by scientists zapping things up into the ionosphere and the stratosphere and the hemisphere and all the spheres, that humans are responsible for weather control and even things like the Japanese tsunami. I don't think so. Anyway, today Maynard will interview Associate Professor Colin Waters from the Centre for Space Physics at the University of Newcastle all about this over-the-horizon radar and the high-altitude atmospheric research project. Look out, conspiracy theorists. Following that, we have a report from our good friend and US correspondent, Travis Roy, from the Granite State Skeptics. He went along, lucky guy that he is, he went along to the Northeast Conference on Science and Skepticism, known as Necss or Necss. That, and met so many great people, and more importantly, interviewed some really fantastic people, starting off with George Hrab, and Brian Dunning, and Eugenie Scott. What a lineup. That's coming up a little later on in the show. And to wrap up the show, we've got a report that went to air here in Australia, in Adelaide. The Today Tonight program on Channel 7 ran a story somewhat critical about homeopathy. Now, I wonder if that's something to do with the lengthy email I sent them about the topic and why I actually end up on the report. Listen to the report. It's off a video, but you don't need the pictures. I think you'll get it. They talk to such people as well, myself and Simon Singh and a few other people. But listen. When it comes on, I want you to pay particular attention to what the representative of the homeopathic industry has to say and her justifications. They're just a classic. Well, that's enough from me. Sit back, grab that lovely ice-cold sarsaparilla, and enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Well, I was in the office the other day and someone came up to me and they said, Maynard, we need to know more about the High Altitude Atmospheric Research Project, HARP as it's called. Now, as it would be, we have someone at Newcastle University who has worked on that and has worked on versions of similar things in Australia. And by the way, we're at the pointy end of the theory and the technology here too, so we're going to have to ask someone who really knows, and he does know. Associate Professor Colin Waters, University of Newcastle, in his office. Look, it's great to be here, and it's very confusing to be here. Now, by the way, what is all that stuff on your whiteboard there, by the way? It looks exactly like you would expect in a physics office.
Yeah.
What is that? Have you solved something?
Well, yeah, they're the plans for some of our research. There's a picture up there of the ionosphere and radars and ionospheric heaters. And then over on the right there's a whole set of steps that we need to do some of our computer simulations.
Just before we get on, what drew you to physics in the first place? Why is that your specialty?
I guess a high school physics teacher expressed the physics in a way I understood and got me interested and excited about it. So I just continued on from the high school into university and became involved in the space physics side with the group here at Newcastle.
And found yourself working on with the North American HARP array for a while. Now, what are they doing there? Because a lot of people get confused about what they're doing, but you've actually been there and you've done it, so you can tell us.
Yeah, so the HARP system is in Alaska, and it's basically used for basic ionospheric research. They have a radio frequency transmitter, array consisting of cross-dipole antennas, and it operates between 2 and 10 megahertz. And the reason why it operates at those frequencies is so that they can deposit the radio energy in the ionosphere at an altitude of 200 to 300 kilometres from Earth.
And when they do that, are they doing it for weather prediction? Are they doing it for communication reasons? Or are they doing it for over-the-horizon radar? Exactly what are they doing it for?
Yeah, so most of it is just pure research in ionospheric physics and how the ionosphere behaves. And it has spin-offs in the communications industry. HF radio propagation was very popular in the past, and nowadays most of the communication is done with satellite, and mobile phones are now satellite. But some of the defence people have now realised that the HF propagation technology is coming back into be more important, because a lot of the satellite communications in defence now go onto the internet, which is not necessarily all that secure. So the defence guys are now starting to use HF comms more readily, especially in Canada and the northern part of America.
Yes, but people think, wow, they're pumping all this power up into the ionosphere. It must be having some effect somewhere on something. And this is where your out there theories come in. How much power do they pump up there?
So with HARP, you're talking about 3.5 megawatts. The sort of energy that's actually getting deposited in the ionosphere, though, is only microwatts per square metre, which is of the order of 1 million times less than the sort of energy that's going into the ionosphere just from natural solar processes.
And why do you think people have developed theories about it? Is it because the actual science of it is pretty hard to grasp?
Yeah, it's difficult for me to understand why people have generated some of these funny ideas. Coming from a radio and ionosphere physics background, you're not heating the ionosphere to the level of punching holes in it or anything like that. All you're doing is just stirring up the components, the ionised gas in the ionosphere, in order to study just the basic physical processes as what's going on. And there are joint research projects with HARP and over-the-horizon radar systems, so that slightly heating the ionosphere at a certain altitude will light up a section of the ionosphere that makes it easier to study using an over-the-horizon radar coming in over the top. We have a couple of systems here in Australia, over-the-horizon radar systems, that are part of an international network. They're very low power. Their effective radiated power is around 12 to 15 watts. And there's one located in Tasmania and one located in New Zealand. We are building one in Adelaide, and we do have plans for putting one at Williamtown. These radar systems are for pure ionospheric research. They study, in conjunction with the 24 other international radars, basic ionospheric plasma physics and the perturbations in the ionosphere that we need to understand if we want to improve our communication systems, if we want to understand what the ionosphere does to GPS signals and errors in positioning for GPS and things like that.
Now, it's been going on since the 80s. I would imagine they'd be fairly advanced, or are we still in the early stages of learning?
Well, we've made a lot of progress since the 1980s. For example, most of our research radars are pointed towards the auroral zones, and we've discovered some new ionospheric features near the auroral zones in terms of having the ionised gas of the ionosphere we call the plasma, where it goes, how it responds to different levels of solar activity. And now the radars in the international scene are starting to be located more equatorward, and we've discovered that the mid-latitude region used to be considered to be very quiet and dull and boring, but some recent research has shown that that's not the case.
Just people at home, what exactly is the mid-latitude region? Because I would thought that would mean the equator.
If you look at the Earth as a sphere, and the equatorial region, obviously near the equator, and there are various ionospheric processes that are unique to that region. So you're talking about somewhere from the equator down to the top of Cape York, that sort of band around the Earth. And then the high latitude region is the auroral zone. So you're looking from the pole to a latitude of 60, 65 degrees. So between that high latitude region of about 60 degrees down to around about where Queensland is mid-latitude. So there's three broad regions in ionospheric physics.
Now you mentioned that we'll have benefits from GPS benefits, there'll be communication benefits, but there's also a benefit to the country of actually having people that are trained in being able to do this, because this is high-tech stuff that we don't do a lot of in Australia. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true. It's important to have personnel trained in this sort of area and knowledge because of the defence applications that we have here in Australia. The Department of Defence rely very heavily on over-the-horizon radar technology with their Jawn system, and they rely on the universities to feed qualified personnel through.
Now, do you think there's a big future for this? Because it's an expensive thing and there's a lot of people competing for funding. How difficult is it to get it going?
Well, here at Newcastle, we've been doing this sort of research since the mid-1960s. So our group here has been going for quite some time. We have a lot of international collaborations going with the UK, Canada, the US and the French, and there's a group in New Zealand we work with and so on. In terms of funding, our main source of funding comes from the Australian government with ARC grants and so on. So we rely very heavily on those.
And as someone who knows the area inside out, is it a bit frustrating that the laymen get really worried because they hear terms like hitting the ionosphere, they hear that the American Defence Department's into it and that kind of thing, and they think that there's something wacky going on. How can you allay those fears? Because you've been there, you've been to the Harp Array, and you're doing it here in Australia, and we haven't had any earthquakes in Australia just recently, I don't think.
No, well, certainly none caused by the Harp Array.
Yes, and why would people be thinking that would cause it anyway? Because you're saying it doesn't heat it up much.
Yeah, maybe it's because the Harp Array is under the umbrella of US Defence, and that perhaps they think it's secret and they can't get any information from it, which is untrue. They have open days quite regularly. You can go onto the Harp base without having any security clearance or anything like that. Any international people or even their own citizens, they can visit the Harp site anytime they want, and the freedom of information of what they do there is phenomenal. They have it on the internet, they'll provide you with it, they'll show you stuff when you go there. Why it's been so many conspiracy theories around Harp, I'm not sure, considering they also have a similar system in Norway. So at Tromsø in Norway, they have a system called ISCAT, and it does essentially the same thing. It's an ionospheric heater, but there don't seem to be too many conspiracy theories around ISCAT. And they also have another heater on Svalbard, and I work with the people there. It was manufactured by the University of Leicester in the UK, and there's another ionospheric heating system very similar to Harp, although a little bit lower power, that's operating there. Now in Australia we don't operate any ionospheric heating systems. We just operate the over-the-horizon radar, low-powered radar systems. So we don't actually beam the radio frequency up into the ionosphere and heat it. We just put an electromagnetic probe up there to see what's going on.
Okay. Now, I've seen the chart of when the best time to be operating is for comms. Is it basically at night or midday, or is the best time to do an over-horizon radar and our sort of miniature project, is it pretty much in the morning is the best time for it?
Yeah, well, that depends, as you said, on the ionospheric conditions. But what we normally do is sense the ionosphere and then shift the frequency. So you can operate an HF comms link any time of day, provided you choose the appropriate frequency. And the frequency changes during the day and with solar activity, and depending on the composition of the ionosphere and what it's doing.
And for people out there that might want to go somewhere on the internet to find out more about this and what the Harp Array is about and try and get the facts and balance against the theories, where should they go? For
the international over-the-horizon radar research program, it's superdan.jhuapl.edu. And that gives you an overview of the sort of experimental research radars we operate. And then, of course, there's our University of Newcastle Space Physics website, which is plasma.newcastle.edu/au.
And the whole thing's pretty open. There's nothing being hidden.
No, nothing being hidden, and I'm happy for people to send me emails or chat or answer any questions about any of sort of the ionospheric research we do.
Great. Look, thanks for your time, Colin.
You're welcome.
Hi, this is Michael Cruz from the Committee for the Advancement of Scientific Skepticism at the Centre for Inquiry Canada. CAS is committed to critically examining scientific, technological, and medical claims in the public forum across Canada. Working with our expert advisors, local CFI branches, and other skeptical groups, CAS confronts the peddlers of pseudoscience with evidence-based scientific inquiry. 2010 has been a watershed year for the skeptical movement in Canada, and in 2011, CAS will continue fighting bad science in the media and the government. If you would like to become involved in the fight to promote critical thinking in Canada, or if you have a concern about the spread of pseudoscience in the Canadian media, please contact us at cas@cficanada.ca. You can also follow us on Twitter at CFICAS and on Facebook at CAS at Centre for Inquiry Canada. CAS, fighting pseudoscience without apology.
The Northeast Conference on Science and Skepticism is a yearly conference put on by New York City skeptics and the New England Skeptic Society. It takes place in New York City, and this year was their first year doing a multi-day conference. It took place on Saturday and Sunday, with events happening on Friday night and Saturday night. Speakers this year included John Rennie, Eugenie Scott, and Keynote with Phil Plait. There was also a number of panels, including one that had Brian Dunning, Sadie Crabtree, Jennifer Michael Heck, among others. There was also live recordings of the Rationally Speaking podcast and the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. I had a chance to sit down with a number of the speakers to get their take on what they thought of this year's Necss.
By supernova explosion, 1 in 10 million. Supernovae happen about once per century in any given galaxy.
All right, this is Travis from the Skeptic Zone. I'm sitting here with George Hrab with Necss 2011 just about to begin. How's it going, George?
Good. Another Necss. Another Necss.
Yes.
Number 17 in 8 months or something?
You've been with them from the start, haven't you?
From the start,
yes.
Yeah. Real honor to be here again. Yay.
So what are you doing for them this time?
I'm on a panel today, which has to do with trusting information in the media, and then I have, which is fine, but the big, coolest thing is tonight I'm doing a concert with my band, which I'm very excited for, because I've never actually done a performance at one of these skeptical events with a band. So it's a 3-piece band playing tonight.
Wow, that's very exciting.
Yeah, I'm really psyched.
How long's your set for?
We got a nice, huge 2-hour set.
Wow.
So tonight from 8:30 to 10:30. I'm very excited. Eric and Vinny are going to be joining me, 2 exceedingly talented musicians that will completely show me up. And you get to see what actual musicians look like. It's going to be very exciting.
Fantastic. Is there anything else you're looking forward to at Necss?
Oh, Phil Plait always delivers a nice speech, I'm sure. And just, for me, the coolest thing about this is the hang, is the opportunity to sort of make plans for the next thing. Whatever that next thing is, whether it's a TAM, whether it's a whatever, a Dragon Con, this is kind of where those plans are made, or even just to meet up with friends down the road at some point. So to bump into all the SGU people again, it's always so cool. It's just so nice, and I don't know, it just gives an opportunity to make plans for the next fun event.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the nice thing about this year Necss being multi-day, because we're able to hang out with people. A lot of people, I was at Necss 1, a lot of us were kind of in and out the same day, so we didn't get a chance to hang out after the event.
I've always had gigs. I've always done my set, and then I've had to run. Last year, I did my set, and then I think 4 hours later, I was on a stage in the Poconos playing for 5 people dancing. So it was kind of both sides of my career. But I said this before about events like TAM or things like QED or whatever. Like, the speakers are great, and the events the speeches are interesting. But a lot of the information that they provide is available in other places. What these things are so great at providing, though, is an opportunity for people to meet each other. So you literally get to meet sort of these faces and avatars and at names in meet space, and then you get to sort of say, hey, let's get together and do this other thing, or let's start our own podcast, or let's start our own conference, or whatever. And that to me is what's so awesome about these.
Great. So what do you got coming up? You're going to be at TAM 9.
Yeah, they asked me to MC TAM 9, which is ridiculously exciting. It's very bizarre for me to come from being purely a fan, 5-6 years ago, to hearing about TAM, to attending TAM, to performing at TAM, to emceeing TAM within the span of, a small dog's life is really cool.
Do you got anything else coming up?
A bunch of performances. Balticon is coming up. That's another sort of fun, more sci-fi festival that happens Memorial Day. And Dragon Con, of course. And just going to try to keep performing and writing and podcasting and all that other fun stuff.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Sweet.
Solar event can seriously impair or destroy a nation's infrastructure and economy. In general, it will not directly cause death. We have to read this.
All right, so this is Travis. I'm sitting here with Brian Dunning
from Skeptoid.com.
Of course. And let's see. So this is your first Necss, right?
Yeah, I heard about the first two and so wanted to go there. But I'm the last person to find out about anything, so I didn't find out about both previous Necsi until they were already over. But yeah, I was really excited to be asked to come out for this one.
Great. And what are you doing at this one?
I'm going to be on a panel with John Randi moderating, and it's asking what I think is probably the single most important question. It's probably the average question that I get in all of my emails, and it's how do people know what information to believe?
So what else? You got any other projects coming up? Are you speaking at TAM or?
I'm not speaking at TAM. However, I do have plenty of projects that I'm working on. I'm actually making a push, and I think it's a reasonable goal, to be doing Skeptoid and related projects full-time by the end of the year.
Wow.
So
that's exciting.
Check back a year from now, we'll see if it came true or not, but that's what I'm working for. So I'm working extremely hard every day trying to make that happen, trying to just keep putting out better, more quality information.
Better, more quality information, like your rubberized poo picture from your last In Fact.
Just like the rubberized poo picture, yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to do more In Fact videos. Of course, I'm trying to do better and better job with the Skeptoid episodes. And there's just a whole bunch of extra projects that I've got going with the website. I'm going to be adding some blogs and stuff, and all projects designed to improve Skeptoid and make it more of a commercially viable product. I mean, it's always going to be free, like every podcast, but I've been a strong believer that if any of this material is going to actually become relevant, it has to be successful in the marketplace for it to survive.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So one thing that I wanted to ask you about, because you don't really get asked about this very much, and I'm a member of it, is the Skeptalk mailing list.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So have you been doing anything with that, or how is that going?
Well, Skeptalk, it's an email list, so it's like a forum, except it's all real-time email. And last time I checked, it was a couple of weeks ago, there were 660 people on it. So, of course, someone joked we just need 6 more. But it's a very active list. It's great. It's a lot of fun. It's not something that I'm yet leveraging in any way to make it really make it more part of the Skeptoid community. It's basically just a well-moderated skeptical email list. There's lots of really good discussion, lots of great people, and I think really high-quality discussion, because we throw out the people who are trolls or break down.
Great. Well, that's it. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you.
The world will end. These are the ways the world will end. These are the ways. These are the ways the world will end.
And I'm sitting here with Eugenie Scott, and we're at Necss 2011. Thanks for joining me.
We are indeed. Thank you. This is going to be fun.
So is this your first Necss?
This is my first Necss, yes.
Wow. What do you think about it so far?
So far, it's great. I mean, they have a really interesting group of speakers, and it's a very well-organized meeting. The Bay Area Skeptics is just starting to have our own regional meeting. And, in fact, we were inspired by these guys out here. And we had our Skeptical 2010 last year, and we're going to have Skeptical 2011 in next month. So I'm kind of watching around the margins here and getting some tips on how to run a smooth meeting. So these guys are doing great.
Wow, that's great. So what are you giving a talk on?
Well, I'm best known as the cheerful person who gives really depressing talks, and today isn't going to be any different. The title of my talk is Why We Still Need to Take Creationism Seriously, and I will be talking about some of the recent developments, recent within the last 5 years. Evolution takes place slowly, as you know, in the anti-evolution movement, and how much more subtle the legislation that's being submitted to legislatures around the country has gotten. The wording is much more difficult to challenge, and it's much more public-friendly, shall we say.
Yep. So what's the latest that's coming? I get your email alerts, and there was one, I think it was Tennessee, I believe?
Tennessee,
yeah.
Yep. Just last Thursday, I think it is. The fine state of Tennessee, which is a wonderful, beautiful part of our country, the House of Representatives there passed its version of a particularly unfortunate anti-evolution law. And it looks very much like the Senate will follow suit. The Senate's bill is a little bit different, but they shouldn't be hard to reconcile. And unfortunately, the legislature doesn't adjourn until the end of May, so there's about 6 weeks to do it. So things aren't looking good.
Yeah. So what else do you have coming up?
We're watching a number of other states where there's legislation pending, and our major concern right now is these academic freedom acts, as they're called, because this is an idea that's been around for actually since about 2004, and every year there's a rash of these bills, and every year our allies at the grassroots levels, bless their hearts, manage to keep these guys bottled up. Only 2 have slipped through, one in 2008 in Louisiana, and then this year in Tennessee. Not, by the way, for lack of trying for our friends in Louisiana or our allies in Tennessee. These folks have worked very, very hard. But sometimes the politics is just stacked too hard against you, and that's the situation with those 2 states.
So what do you do in those cases when it's gotten to that point?
Well, first of all, we look very carefully at the bill. We ask our legal advisory committee to scrutinize the way these bills are crafted. Because, frankly, nobody wants to make bad law.
Yeah.
And what you want to do is, if you have to challenge something legally, and there have been almost 40 of these bills, and 38 of them have been bottled up. So obviously, clearly, our efforts have been not placed on litigation. Our efforts are placed on getting these things bottled up in the first place and not getting them passed. We always prefer to work behind the scenes or work off stage to avoid litigation. Nobody wants to go to court. But when these kinds of bills pass, then the decision has to be made. And with the Louisiana bill, the facts just weren't right. These bills are written very cleverly so that they are they're deliberately written so that they will be less susceptible to an Establishment Clause challenge. Establishment Clause in the U.S., of course, is the part of our First Amendment, which calls for public institutions to be religiously neutral. The separation of church and state is how it's usually phrased, but it's actually much more subtle and in some respects more powerful than that. You don't want to make bad law, so what you kind of have to do is, without the ability or the prospect of success of a facial challenge, challenging a bill on its face, you have to catch somebody in the act, if you will. You have to catch that teacher who has stepped over the line. You have to try to find where a teacher is teaching some form of creationism, which the courts have been very consistent in declaring unconstitutional, and use that example of how this bill does cause harm. And so even though the bill sounds very innocent, here's how it's being played out, Judge. This bill should be struck down or this law should be struck down. It's already a law. The law should be struck down because it is being used to promote religion.
Yeah.
But that's a lot tougher.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to find somebody, catching somebody in the act, so to speak.
Right. So, are you going to be at TAM?
Yes, I'm going to be at TAM this year.
Yeah, are you going to be similar talk, or?
I don't know. TAM's a long way away. Do you know how many talks away TAM is? My God, I haven't even thought of what I'm going to say at TAM. I don't think Anyway, I may have sent him an abstract, but hey, I don't prepare the talks until shortly before the actual presentation, because it's a lot fresher that way, and I can add new things. I mean, this talk that I'm giving this afternoon is truly hot off the press. It'll deal with the... I'm gonna do something that I hardly ever do in a talk, which is provide text for you to look at, because I think there's hardly anything worse than a speaker who shows the audience line after line of words. There's hardly anything more boring than that. But unfortunately, I do have to show people the words here, because that is what you need to know about.
Oh, great.
The subtlety with which these bills are being crafted.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing your talk here and at TAM 9.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the rest of this meeting. It's a good bunch of folks here.
Great. Thank you very much. Hi, it's Travis here, and I'm sitting here with Dale Roy, my wife and Vice President of Granite State Skeptics.
Hello.
And what did you think of Necss 3?
Really liked it. Thought it was a huge difference from the first one. And a lot of really good talks and panels. And I thought it was good that they extended it to 2 days.
Yes, I agree. The doing it multiple days was fantastic.
Yeah.
Especially having the after-hours events, the 2 drinking skepticallys.
Oh, those were a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then they had a few museum visits that we didn't get to go to, but I heard that they were really good.
Yeah, stupid work got in the way.
Yeah. So which talks did you enjoy?
I enjoyed Phil Plate's talk.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the panel on information overload.
Yes, I really enjoyed that one as well.
It was nice to hear Sadie Crabtree in person.
Yes, I was very impressed with what she had to say on the panel.
Yeah, it was also good to meet her at Drinking Skeptically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always good to catch up with friends at these conferences.
Yeah.
And we saw plenty of placebo bans.
Those were good.
Yes.
Good to hand out.
Yes.
Drinking Skeptically with George Hrab was a packed event.
Oh, yes. Yeah, overflowing to the street.
Yes, literally. SGU Live.
Oh, yes.
Always a fantastic thing to experience.
Yep, always good to hear the SGU Live. So what'd you think of Phil Plate's talk?
I thought it was really good. I liked how he was able to mix calculus, of all things, in with his explanation on at what point do you make a decision on what evidence to believe.
Yeah. It was basically, he made it like he explained it similar to a staircase that you can never get to the end, that the steps end up getting closer and closer, but you never reach the top. It was, what was it called? The Epsilon?
Yes, it's called Epsilon.
Yes, that was very good. There's a point that you reach where you have to just believe what you're going to believe based on the evidence you have.
I wish someone was able to explain calculus to me that easily when I was actually taking the course many moons ago.
And the information overload talk our panel was very, very good.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, because I certainly feel like we're in an explosion of availability of information. It's very difficult to distinguish at times what is reliable and what is not.
So I guess that's it from us for Necss.
Hey bro.
Hey bro, what's this message you sent me about $1 million?
SkepticBros.com have finally cracked it. A detection device that will prove the existence of the paranormal.
What?
Let me show you.
Hey! Ow! Ah! Why are we in a cupboard?
Check it out, a new placebo band.
And it's glowing.
Yes, in the dark. That's when the ghosts are about. We're gonna win Randy's $1 million.
I'm going home. Let me out.
Can't. Cupboard only opens from the outside.
No!
Go to Skeptic Bros. Get a glow in the dark placebo band. Where you gonna go? SkepticBros.com.
Now here's a report from the Today Tonight program. As seen in Adelaide, this story went to air in Adelaide. I hope it will go to air around the country. It's the audio from the report. You don't need the pictures. And it's all about the modern witchcraft of homeopathy.
Homeopathy generates billions of dollars in global sales of its so-called natural medicines. These alternative treatments are used for all kinds of ailments in both adults and children. But what's really in them, and do they actually work, or are they nothing more than expensive placebos? Well, Frank Pangallo went looking for those answers, and what he found will shock you.
No herbs, no ingredients. It's more like witchcraft than science.
After 200 years and after 200 clinical trials, there is still no good evidence at all for any condition that homeopathy works.
Yet homeopathy continues to thrive virtually unchallenged. Unproven products labelled natural medicine sitting alongside conventional medicines on pharmacy shelves. Scandalous, says Richard Saunders of the Australian Skeptics.
You know, there are laws in this country about the false labelling of medicine, and homeopathy, which claims to be medicine, should be subject to those same laws.
The principles of homeopathy make no sense whatsoever. That like cures like. In other words, a substance that causes a symptom will cure a symptom. So for insomnia, caffeine, a stimulant, is the main ingredient.
Now, this might seem a little bit counterintuitive, but this is where the second principle behind homeopathy comes in. The idea is when you start diluting out the substance, it goes from being something that causes something to something that takes away the cause.
That's the most controversial aspect, and has scientists like Dr. Ian Musgrave from the Adelaide University's School of Pharmacology reeling in utter disbelief.
What is the problem here is that homeopaths are using very, very large dilutions.
Here's the absurdity of this so-called natural medicine. The active ingredients have been diluted in water to such an extent. And I'm talking about millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of times. That's the equivalent of me placing a drop in the ocean. You're getting a dose of nothing.
When homeopaths talk about dilutions, they often talk in terms of 1C, 2C, 3C, where C stands for a dilution of 1 in 100.
You'll find that information on the labels. So 30C in these two products indicates a drop or molecule of the active ingredient into all of the Earth's oceans.
Now, most homeopaths will agree with that. They say, OK, that's fine, there is no original substance in there. What's happening is somehow the water is memorising or carrying the imprint of the original chemical in there.
This claim is absolutely ridiculous, because if water had a memory, then it would remember every bit of sewerage it's ever been in contact with. Doesn't sound very nice.
It's flawed science. Well, it's not even flawed science, it's flawed alchemy.
So with Dr. Musgrave, we became guinea pigs, testing the sleep and insomnia tablets made by the large South Australian homeopathic medicine manufacturer, Brow.
There's 80 tablets in here. You're going to take 40, I'm going to take 40, then I'm going to interview you, and let's see how we feel at the end of the interview.
Well, if I fall asleep during the interview, we know it's working.
What if I do?
Then I'll just keep on talking. I'm very good at that.
OK, well, let's overdose on these sleeping pills.
Of course, we strongly advise against doing this with any other sleeping pills, but you'll soon see what happens to us. Still, homeopaths, like the Homeopathic Association's national president, Michelle Hookham, remain resolute.
The way the medicines are made, it's very hard for the scientific body to get their heads around that. It is a difficult area. And people think that one day quantum physics will be able to explain just how such ultra dilutions of substances can still have a medicinal effect.
Nicole Reynolds is one of Michelle's clients and maintains it works for her and her children.
I guess seeing it's worked for 250 years and it's spread over the world and millions of people use it, can't be too bad. There must be something in it.
Homeopathy is a complementary medicine. It can be used in conjunction with other therapies and treatments and regular orthodox medical treatment.
Michelle Hookham claims there are many studies which support homeopathy, much of them not independently scrutinised.
It's very hard to measure homeopathy with using the benchmark of the randomised clinical trial, and the reason for that is because of the individualised nature of the treatment itself.
Oh, my Lord. Oh, my, how does Cinderella do it in this dress?
But fanning the flames of popular support for this bizarre industry are the rich and famous, like actress Catherine Zeta-Jones, singers Tina Turner and Cher, the Beckhams, and the royal family. In fact, the Queen's physician, Dr. Peter Fisher, is a champion for the flawed cause.
I have never seen a credible scientific study that backs up homeopathy. In fact, the UK government last year did a completely independent look in all the studies of homeopathy and concluded that there was no credible evidence for it.
Homeopathy is back where it started, without any credible scientific explanation. That won't stop millions of people putting their faith in it, but science is confident. Homeopathy is impossible.
That was the conclusion in an exhaustive, comprehensive experiment conducted by the BBC using eminent British scientists. At stake, $1 million put up by skeptic James Randi if proved that it worked.
Homeopathy is one of the biggest health scams in America, and it's a problem around the globe.
His cash is still up for grabs, along with $100,000 from Richard Saunders and $20,000 offered by Simon Singh, author of the bestseller Trick or Treatment.
So conventional medicine and science and rationalism has brought us a huge amount of good. And it's worrying that there's been this rise, and it's undoubted that there's a rise in alternative therapies. And many of them are unproven, disproven, downright dangerous.
And the most disturbing and tragic case against it is that of Sydney homeopath Thomas Sam and his wife Manju. They're now serving a jail term for the manslaughter of their baby daughter Gloria, after they chose homeopathic remedies ahead of conventional medicine to treat the child's serious skin disorder.
Oddly enough, I wouldn't be able to treat anybody's pets. If you're going to treat an animal, you have to be a fully qualified vet. But to treat a human, it seems like anybody's allowed to do that. And there's a real danger associated with that.
You'll find that a lot of the homeopathic medicines are registered under a under a lower scale of evidence than the medicines that we normally take.
Alarmingly, there are some homeopaths who peddle their concoctions as alternatives to vaccination, or this loony advice to treat radiation sickness, which was distributed in the wake of the problems from the damaged Japanese nuclear power plant.
The idea that these sugar pills can be used to help people with radiation sickness or as a substitute for childhood vaccinations is ludicrous, it's dangerous, and these people should be prosecuted for putting people's lives in danger.
Like I said, it's very sweet. I'm enjoying the sugary taste.
However, no chance of any harm for Dr. Musgrave and me after our fix, which tasted more like sugar.
Phew, took our tablets about 20 minutes ago. How are you feeling?
Well, I must say I'm feeling quite awake.
Yeah. Doesn't seem to have had an effect, does it?
No, but we probably should wait just a little bit longer to see if we
doze off or something.
Doze off in the middle of speaking.
These so-called medicines are a really expensive placebo. Gram for gram, it's more expensive than sterling silver. You get a much bigger bang for your buck with the good old-fashioned jelly beans.
We wanted to talk to Brown Natural Medicine about their products, but after initially agreeing, they backed out. Richard Saunders says it's time for our health officials to get tough on the whole industry.
I think the health authorities have been reluctant to act against this stuff because there's nothing in it. There's nothing for them to act against. But what we want to see happen tomorrow is these labels stuck on every packet of homeopathy. It's not medicine, and the public need to know that.
And ironically, the Therapeutic Goods Administration tells us the area remains unregulated because the medicines are low risk and contain low concentrations of ingredients, or, as we found, mainly sugar or water. However, the TGA says it is developing new guidelines to ensure they remain safe. But again, as Frank discovered, there seems to be no danger there either.
We take you now to a conversation being shouted across a hillside.
What?
I said I'm trying to come up with a promo for this podcast.
What podcast?
The Geologic Podcast.
What?
The Geologic Podcast.
Oh, Hrab's pointless meanderings, sceptical observations, ridiculous musical interludes, and not a hint of geology.
Well,
all right, maybe a little bit of geology, but it's not worth it.
Come on, he's got the religious moron of the week. Geo's mom reads Jay-Z lyrics.
Pointless.
Ask George.
Oh, who cares what the bastard thinks?
Interesting fauna.
Oh, great.
The horoscopes.
Garbage.
Not the Bible.
Boring garbage.
Misinformed science.
Stupid garbage.
The true adventures of the Philadelphia Funk Authority.
Ooh, white Ukrainian boy playing drums in a funk band. Must be fascinating.
What, none of that is appealing?
Not even a wee bit.
Great. Don't tune in then.
I won't.
Fine.
Fine.
Great.
Great.
Fine.
Great.
Great.
You said that already.
Geologic Podcast. Pointless, but free. GeologicPodcast.com.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Hey, listen, if you thought that Frank Pangallo, the reporter on Today Tonight, the guy you just heard doing the homeopathy story, did a good report, and I think he did, if you Google Today Tonight and Adelaide, you can leave a message encouraging and supporting what they did. Because I think at times the media don't really come to our help, but sometimes they come through with bells on, and that was a great report. So, thanks to Today Tonight. And thank you for listening to The Skeptic Zone. Lots more coming up, as always, and I look forward to your company, and I hope you look forward to our company next week. Until then, this is Richard Saunders, signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to The Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.